Hi, my name is Madison Snyder, and I teach 4th grade at Bonnie Kate Elementary School.
And I'm Ashley Fleming, and I teach 4th grade at West Hills Elementary School. Ms. Snyder and I are so excited that you guys have come back to join us this week. We have worked really hard planning a recap week for you guys, and we have done some extension activities that we challenged you with last week, so we can't wait to share those with you today. So let's go ahead and get started. Remember that as we reread today and take a look back at becoming an animal expert, that we can always gain new knowledge and become stronger, more fluent readers. As we work through today's lesson, we want you all to think back about what we learned last week about animal experts and perhaps look back at some of those extension work activities that you did on the topic. Remember today, if you have any trouble with your video, you can turn on the closed caption. You may also adjust the speed of the video. You can pause and rewatch certain parts of the video. You can also pause and discuss it with someone in your home. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been trying to solve mysteries and puzzles. We discussed how using the Super Sleuth steps can help us with reading, talking, and writing about text. We're going to continue to use those same sleuth tips as we go through today's recap and extension lesson. Will you continue to help us by being the best sleuths around? Remember, to be good sleuths, you need to gather evidence. We can do this by taking notes, annotating on our text as we read, and even creating diagrams and charts to organize what's important. We also ask questions to gather facts and evidence, as we challenged you last week to generate questions that you could ask animal behavior scientists, which could have led you to research some interesting answers. Next, make your case by not only sharing what you've learned and understood, but also being able to listen to others' opinions and ask them more questions to see where they're coming from. Lastly, prove it, using your evidence to focus on what's most important to share. Maybe over the last couple of weeks, you have shared with your family about some of the mysteries and puzzles that we've discussed. We'll continue to use each of these tips to help us answer the question, why do animals behave the way they do? Today, we look back at the text, Becoming an Animal Expert, to dig deeper in our understanding of this topic, and we'll take a look at what some of the extension activities might look like that you tackled from last week's tic-tac-toe board. We hope that you will work to gather evidence, ask questions, make your case, and prove it right along with us. Now, before we reread our text, let's look back at a couple of strategies we used to help us last time. One of the main strategies we've used in reading unfamiliar words is to think about word parts and word meanings, like the one we reviewed, meaning someone who. We discussed how the suffixes ist, er, or, and ian can have this meaning. For example, with an artist, this is someone who does art or has a lot of knowledge about art. Also, we can think about the word teacher, someone who teaches or has a lot of knowledge about teaching. Another strategy Ms. Snyder and I modeled was making an inference while reading to show a better understanding of what the author is conveying in his text. Remember that when we make inferences, we take what we already know and combine it with new information that we read to make a judgment or an inference about the topic in which we're reading about. Like when Ms. Snyder inferred that they are dedicated, those students, because of how much school they have to go through to be the job of the animal behavior scientist from our passage last week. Or I made the inference from the passage that these students are driven because of the extra years that they have to go to college above the normal, for that most of college students attend. Let's keep these strategies in mind as we revisit the text today and look at some of the extension activities that we've paired with this passage. So let's get going by diving back into our text and think back to the question we posed to you last week. What do animals have to do with mysteries and puzzles?
Today, we are rereading the text, Becoming an Animal Expert. Think back. What is an expert? An expert is someone who knows and studies a lot about a subject. These are animal experts. I love how the author provided some graphic sources in this text to help me see some jobs they may have. Got lots of different animals here. I love that. Well, we're going to reread the text together today and review the key ideas as we read. We're going to read the first 2 paragraphs together. Do you like animals? Are you curious about why they do the things they do? If you answered yes to these questions, you might make a good scientist someday. There are many scientists who specialize in the study of animal behavior. These scientists go by many names: doctor, curator, researcher, trainer, zoologist, biologist, and veterinarian, just to name a few. Some of the jobs that animal experts can have are, that's right, doctor, curator, researcher, trainer, zoologist, biologist, and veterinarian. Those all have the suffixes that Miss Fleming just reviewed with us. I see the suffix ist, er, or, and ian on those words, all meaning someone who. Good job. As we read the next paragraph, we're going to think about the steps someone should take to become an animal behavior scientist. Right? Let's read together. To become an animal behavior scientist, you must go to college to learn as much as you can about animals. In fact, most animal behavior jobs require advanced degrees, which means you may have to go to college for more than the usual 4 years. Becoming an animal behavior specialist takes a lot of studying, hard work, and good grades. As we read that paragraph, we wanted to think about what are the next steps. We see they must go to college, and it might require a degree beyond 4 years. They also have to do what in school? That's right, study, work hard, and make good grades. Let's read the next 2 paragraphs to see some potential jobs the animal experts may have. When you're done with your studies, you might become a professor at a college. Here, you might teach classes, research animals, and write articles explaining what you've discovered about these animals. You might become a veterinarian or animal doctor. Vets take care of many different kinds of animals. You might even go to work for a company that makes products for animals, such as food or medicine. So one job you may have could be that's right, professor. As a professor, you may teach classes, that's right, research, or even write articles. There's another job that an animal expert may have, which is, that's right, a veterinarian, or the text renames that as an animal doctor. Now we're going to move to the next page. These paragraphs explain some important animal behavior scientists and some of their jobs. We're going to read this entire page together. Let's go ahead. Other animal behavior scientists go to work at zoos, aquariums, or nature preserves. They figure out the best ways to care for and study the animals that live there. Take a look at some famous animal behavior specialists. Charles Darwin was a scientist who became famous for his study of how animals evolve or change over time. Rachel Carson was a well-known American ecologist and marine biologist. Jane Goodall is a famous animal behavior scientist. She is best known for her study of chimpanzees in Africa. Steve Irwin was another well-known animal expert. He ran a zoo in Australia and was famous for his knowledge of crocodiles. These scientists understood and continue to understand that all living creatures are linked together on our planet. All around the world, in oceans, jungles, deserts, and labs, scientists like these are making new discoveries about all kinds of animals. Maybe someday you will be one of them too. All right, so as we were reading these paragraphs, the first paragraph shows some jobs that an animal behavior scientist may work at. They are, that's right, zoos, aquariums, or nature preserves. Next, we have some famous animal behavior scientists in this next paragraph. There are 4. The first is Charles Darwin. He studied how animals evolve. Next is, that's right, Rachel Carson. She was the ecologist and marine biologist. Then we have, that's right, Jane Goodall. She was famous for her work with the chimpanzees. And finally, we see Steve Irwin. He was worked in an Australian zoo and knew a lot about crocodiles. All of these scientists work to, that's right, make new discoveries about animals. Good job, guys. So the sleuth work that you could have done this week, Miss Fleming and I, remember we made a tic-tac-toe board that embedded these into that board that you could have done.
That's right. Last week, Miss Snyder and I decided that we would take on the challenge ourselves. Now, we decided to complete our tic-tac-toe boards differently. So we're going to explain to you how we worked some of our activities and how we completed them. And we want to extend our knowledge of some of those strategies in the topic itself. So let's take a look at what we came up with.
All right, like Ms. Fleming said, I decided to do the 3 activities across the first row. So the first activity that I'm doing is the morphology, the gather evidence. I reread the text to search for each word that had one of the suffixes that mean someone who. I chose to organize this by putting each suffix at the top: ist, er, or, and ian. When I came across a word that contained the suffix, I placed it in that specific column. For example, I saw the word scientist. I noticed the suffix ist, so I placed it in the first column. You can see how I found several while reading Becoming an Animal Expert. This week, I was also reading the book The Tales of Beetle the Bard by J.K. Rowling. She's the author of the popular Harry Potter books. I added a few words to my suffix list as I was reading, like the word sorcerer and creeper and director.
Wow, that was awesome. Can I show you what I did with my morphology sort?
Of course.
Thanks. I would love to show you how I did this activity as well. So I also set up a table much like yours, Ms. Snyder, with different suffixes er, or, ist, and ian. I looked back and reread the text just like Ms. Snyder did, and I pulled those examples out. Then I decided that I would apply this while I was reading Chapter 13, American Industrial Revolution, that was assigned to us last week in our social studies videos. And I decided that I would label those in a different color so that I could see those. I found a lot with ER, like farmers, southerners, owners, carpenters, overseers, and settlers.
Very cool. All right, the next activity I chose to do were the interview questions. So I reread the text again with the new purpose of asking those questions. And remember, asking questions is so important for us to understand and get a deeper understanding of the text. And I could go even deeper and research the answer to these questions. So the questions are, number 1, when did you first dream of becoming an animal expert? Number 2, how much school did you attend? Number 3, do you ever work closely with other animal behavior scientists? Number 4, which famous animal expert inspires you the most? And finally, What advice would you give me if I would like to become an animal behavior scientist? And remember, you could have had someone in your home ask you these questions and pretend you were the animal expert. All right, and for the final part of the tic-tac-toe board, I did the noun hunt in the text. And again, I reread that text with a new purpose. As you see, I organized it similarly to the suffix hunt. I have a section for common nouns and proper nouns. I did not label every noun in the text. I just chose some of them while I was reading. Your list may look different than mine, but you should have grouped them the same way. Common nouns represent general nouns. This is the list I found of common nouns. My first example is the word animals. It refers to the general group of animals. Now, for proper nouns, they name a specific person, place, thing, or idea. The text named several specific people, like Charles Darwin, and named a few specific places, like Africa.
I really like how you organized all of that, Miss Snyder, and I really like how you explained it. I can tell that you took some time to go back to the text. Okay, so here I'm going to show you how I completed my 3 in a row. I went down the tic-tac-toe board on the left side, and I already showed you how I did my morphology suffix hunt. So I'm going to keep going by explaining how I did the make your case. Now, in your classrooms throughout the last couple of years, you may have used a graphic organizer like Oreo to organize your thoughts before writing. With the letters in Oreo, we remember that the O is for stating our opinion in the beginning. The R stands for the reasons that we have that opinion. Now, the E can stand for a few things depending on how you learned it, and that's totally fine. It could stand for examples, evidence, it could be explaining, even elaborating. And last, we have another O to remember or to remind us to restate our opinion again at the end of our paragraph. Now, since I've already chosen a teaching career, I had to put myself in the mindset of a 4th grader thinking about this topic. I did decide to use the Oreo graphic organizer to organize my thoughts and to make sure I had a good structure to my paragraph. Here's what I came up with. With my graphic organizer, I made sure just to jot down my opinions and maybe a couple little phrases from the text that I would want to incorporate in my paragraph. Here's my paragraph that I came up with. I believe that I could be a great animal behavior specialist because I work hard in school and love animals. When it comes to school, I always try to work hard. With that hard work, I could make good grades while studying in college. In college, I would be willing to put in the extra years to learn everything I could to make me a better animal behavior specialist. Not only do I find animals to be fascinating, but also mysterious, which could make learning about them even more worth the hard work and time. All in all, I think it is clear that being an animal behavior specialist could be just the job for me. Now, I'd like your help in double checking my writing to make sure we look for those key components of a well-written paragraph. And keep in mind that this is an opinion paragraph, so that sometimes they look a little different. First, I need that topic sentence which states my opinion. Do you see it? There it is. I believe that I could be a great animal behavior specialist because I work hard in school and love animals. Notice how I put I believe, which shows that I'm stating an opinion, and I am clear that I do believe I could be a great animal behavior specialist. Then I look to make sure to explain my reasons, which were that I work hard in school and love animals. And I wanted to make sure that I supported that with some text tie-in. And you see those here in the text. Hard work, good grades. I mentioned college, even the extra years that I read about with Miss Snyder earlier. Lastly, I wanted to make sure that I have restated my opinion in the conclusion sentence. You will see it here. All in all, I think it is clear that being an animal behavior specialist could be just the job for me. All of the things that we've pointed out in this paragraph are a lot of the things that we mentioned in our well-written paragraphs in weeks prior to this. We also noticed that we have that same structure that we find in our writing rubrics. I also wanted to make sure that I tied it back to the text, used good transition words, but also just clearly made sure my audience knew that I do believe I could make a great animal behavior specialist. Now, I even had Ms. Snyder take a look at the paragraph to give me a little peer feedback. I know sometimes we do that in the classroom. Feel free to have someone at your home do that for you as well. Now, one last thing I want everyone to keep in mind is that part of being a good sleuth was being able to listen to others' opinions. You may think that being an animal behavior scientist would not be a good job for you in the future, and that's okay. If you were to write an opinion paragraph for your extension work, that was more that this opinion that you maybe did not want to become an animal behavior specialist, you would still need to support your opinion with evidence from the text. So maybe you wouldn't want to take the extra years in college, or maybe you don't care that much for animals like the author prompted us at the beginning. Keep those things in mind as you form your own opinion. Now, the last activity I chose to do was to gather evidence through the zoo live camera feeds. I jotted down some notes from the 2 different sites that I observed and read about pandas. And I even shared some pictures that I saw while I was watching the videos. I just took a few little screenshots and I wanted to share those with you. This could be something that I could create and turn into an informational poster to share with someone in my house. It could also be maybe a Google slide presentation that I could share with my classroom teacher. Or maybe it's something that you are doing on Canvas, or maybe you just want to talk to some people in your house about it. Any of those options would be fantastic.
I love how hard you worked on all of that, Miss Fleming. I especially love the pandas. They're really cute.
Thanks. I really loved that part too.
So I just want to review really quickly all of the options that you could have done with this tic-tac-toe board. So I did this first row here, the gather evidence, ask questions, and the other gather evidence. So if you want a model of those, you can rewatch this video and see those examples. The next section, Miss Fleming modeled that beautiful opinion paragraph for us. So if you want some help on that, make your case, you can go back and rewatch. The other 2 options on this on this row are you could reread paragraph 7, choose one of those famous animal behavior scientists to research with an adult and create a visual or poster of what you learned. You can also prove it by making an inference about what type of person would become an animal expert. And Miss Fleming reviewed what an inference was earlier in the video. And finally, the last row there, Miss Fleming modeled gathering evidence for that research. The other 2 options are making your case and prove it. You can make your case by recording yourself advertising to become an animal expert and persuade others to become an animal expert. Then you can make that science connection because the text said, these scientists understood and continue to understand that all living creatures are linked together on our planet. You can create a food web that contains animals that you've read about recently. Thank you guys so much for joining us at KCS at Home. Be sure to visit the KCS resource page or your school's library and media pages to help you out with any research. Today, we reread to answer the question, why do animals behave the way they do? We've learned how you can become an animal expert and that there are several jobs we can work towards to explain animal behaviors. We also took a look at some ideas of how you can complete the extension tic-tac-toe board. We can't wait for you to extend your learning and share it with someone. You guys are doing a great job working along with us as we learn together to review materials. We look forward to learning with you guys again soon.
And I just want to thank everybody again. My name is Ashley Fleming, and I'm the 4th grade teacher at West Hills Elementary School.
I'm Madison Snyder from Bonnie Kate Elementary School, and we continue to say a special thank you to Mrs. Croft, our ELL teammate from Spring Hill, for her support in planning these lessons for our Knox County students. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.